My name is Alphonse Gabriel Capone, but the world knows me by a name I despised, Scarface. My friends? They called me Snorky because I knew how to dress, I knew how to dance. You think you know my story as the King of Chicago, but my kingdom wasn't built on Lake Michigan. It was forged in the cold, unforgiving streets of Brooklyn. I was born in 1899 to honest Italian immigrants. My father was a barber, my mother a seamstress. They believed in hard work. I believed in results. I realized very early that the American dream was a lie, unless you were willing to take it by force. I didn't fit into their school system. When I hit a teacher in the face at age 14, my education ended, and my real life began. I ran with the 5 Points Gang. That's where I learned loyalty, and that's where I learned silence. And this scar on my face, I told people I got it in the war. That was a lie. I got it in a bar fight over a girl. I insulted a woman, and her brother slashed my face open. That night taught me the most important lesson of my life. Never let your guard down, and never make an enemy you don't have to. New York was too crowded, but then destiny called. My mentor, Johnny Torrio, invited me out west. "Come to Chicago, Al," he said. "It's a gold mine." He was right. In 1919, I arrived in Chicago not just to work, but to conquer. I wasn't just a thug, I was a student of the game. I was ready to stop thinking like a street fighter and start thinking like a CEO. The United States government gave me the greatest gift in history: prohibition. They passed a law saying people couldn't drink. They thought it would clean up the country. Instead, they handed men like me the keys to the vault. I was just a businessman. I gave the people what they wanted. All I did was supply a public demand. When Johnny Torrio retired after an assassination attempt, he handed the keys of the Chicago outfit to me. I was 26 years old. I had an army of soldiers, and I had the city in my pocket. Judges, police chiefs, politicians, they were all on my payroll. I ran this city from my suite at the Lexington Hotel. The people loved me. Why? Because I shared the wealth. When the Great Depression hit and people were starving, the government did nothing. But Al Capone, I opened soup kitchens. I fed thousands. They called me a modern-day Robin Hood. I went to baseball games, signed autographs, and smiled for the cameras. But behind that smile was iron. I had a simple philosophy. You can get much farther with a kind word and a gun than you can with a kind word alone. I offered my rivals a choice: silver or lead. Take my money and join me, or take my bullet and disappear. Most took the money. Those who didn't found themselves at the bottom of the Chicago River. I felt untouchable. I thought I was bigger than the law, but arrogance is a dangerous drug. 1929, the year my empire reached its peak, and the year it started to crumble. I had a rival, Bugs Moran. He ran the North Sitiad. He was a nuisance, hijacking my shipments, challenging my authority. He needed to go. What happened next would be written in blood in the history books as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. On the morning of February 14th, my men dressed as police officers entered a garage on North Clark Street. Moran's men thought it was a raid. They lined up against the wall, hands up. They expected handcuffs. Instead, they got Tommy guns. 7 men were mowed down in seconds. It was brutal. It was efficient. I was in Florida at the time. I had the perfect alibi. But the public didn't care about alibis. When those photos hit the newspapers, the Robin Hood image died. People saw the blood. They saw the cruelty. The cheers turned into fear. President Herbert Hoover himself stepped in. He gave the order, "Get Capone." I became public enemy number one. The FBI, the Treasury, the police, everyone was hunting me. But here is the joke. They couldn't catch me for the murders. They couldn't catch me for the bootlegging. I covered my tracks too well. Witnesses vanished, evidence disappeared. I thought I had won. I didn't realize that while I was watching for gunmen in the streets, the real threat was sitting in an office, holding a calculator. They didn't get me with a gun. They didn't get me with a snitch. They got me with taxes, the IRS. Can you believe it? The man who made $100 million a year was taken down because he didn't file a return. In 1931, I walked into that courtroom confident. I had bribed the jury pool. It was a done deal. But then the judge did something I didn't expect. At the last minute, he swapped the entire jury panel with one from another courtroom. I saw the fear in my lawyer's eyes. I knew it was over. I was sentenced to 11 years for tax evasion. At first, I was in Atlanta, living like a king in my cell, but they wanted to break me. They sent me to the Rock, Alcatraz. There, I was nobody. No bribes, no special treatment. Just wind, cold, and silence. But the prison wasn't what destroyed me. It was my past sins catching up. Syphilis, a disease I had caught as a young bouncer in the brothels, lay dormant for years. Now it was eating my brain. I started to lose my mind. The man who ruled Chicago was now a confused, rambling ghost, scared of the dark, playing a banjo in his cell. The king was dead long before his heart stopped beating. I was released in 1939, but Al Capone was already gone. I lived my final years in Florida. My mind regressed to that of a child. I used to talk to people who weren't there. On January 25th, 1947, I died in my bed, surrounded by family. I wasn't gunned down in the street like a dog. I died a free man. History calls me a monster. Maybe I was, but remember this. I was a product of your hypocrisy. You wanted the drink, I sold it. You wanted the thrill, I provided it. I am Al Capone. I lived fast, I died young, and I left a scar on the face of America that will never heal.
Al Capone built an empire on blood and ambition, but a microscopic bacteria brought him down. Whose story should we tell next? The tyrant, the genius, or the traitor? Tell us in the comments. Subscribe to I Am History and ring the bell, because the past is never truly dead.